Hey everyone, Reid with Valor. We're going to talk about in this video is what happens when voting doesn't work anymore. But before we get to the meat and potatoes, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You got some alerts going, that way you don't miss any of the other videos in the future. Let's go ahead and get started. Folks, this is our first interaction together, or even for those of you that have followed me for a long time, you have to understand the purpose of this channel is about the constitutional republic, the representative republic that is the United States of America, and what natural rights are. The Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, all of the Bill of Rights are extremely important in my life, and I know that if you're watching this, they are probably extremely important in yours as well. What happens when elections don't work anymore? What happens when there's a viewpoint in this country that is absolutely antithetical and hostile to our Constitution? What happens when there are more people in this country that want to get rid of the Constitution or amend it out of existence? What happens if they do that through a legitimate electoral process? Well, this is what happened in the Soviet Union, and many of you watching this may not have been born during the time of the Soviet Union. It was an extremely oppressive regime that was communist, socialist. Marx used the terms interchangeably. It was a very bad country. The government spied on its own citizens. They had a secret police that would snatch people up and arrest them without due process of law. Nobody was allowed to protect themselves against the government, and they were thrown into prisons at astronomical rates for disagreeing with the government or saying something that they weren't supposed to. Well, in a republic like this, we have a right, even if we're in the minority, to have our rights protected. And firearms owners, although there's anywhere between 80 to 100 million of us, that would be about 30 to 33% of the population, that would be less than 50%. That means that we're in the minority. But I'm here to tell you folks, what happens when the elections, when people that live in these big mega cities, people that live in these posh suburbs, which is anti-freedom, anti-Second Amendment, anti-First Amendment, anti-Fourth Amendment, on and on down the Bill of Rights we go. But what happens when our elections don't work anymore? What happens when there are more of those people than there are of people that believe in the Constitution? Well, our rights are supposed to be upheld even when we're in the minority. Now notice that's a conditional verb, supposed to be upheld. Now what happens when we get to the point where they just keep passing laws and laws further restricting our freedom? Well, you got two choices. You have compliance and you've got rebellion. Compliance means you're going to follow the law, you just want to go to work and get a paycheck and provide for your family, and then perpetuate that cycle for the next, 50, 60, 70 years, and then your children will be less free than what you are right now. You're either going to comply or you're going to have to rebel, and people all over the country are rebelling against unjust firearms laws, and there's no question about it. But I fear that we're on the revolutionary timeline. If you look at American history, and I'm using this as a metaphor, if we were to look at the revolutionary timeline, I would look at the time where we would be right now, which would be somewhere around 1773 to 1774. This is when the rhetoric started really ratcheting up by the British. This is when the colonists really started to take their proficiency with the use of firearms very seriously. And this is where people in the past, our ancestors, started to go out and train and started to get good and started to philosophically be at ease with what they were about to do. Do I think that's going to happen with us? Well, I would look at it as probably a 51 to 49% chance that we may have to or may not have to, and I'll leave it to the discernment of the viewer to figure out which one I am more weighted towards. That said, folks, I hope that it doesn't come to that, but if it does, my heart's pure. I know where my soul's going. I also know that the country that the socialist left wants to enact on us is not worth living in. And if they get their way, one of the worst things a person could ever do is become an old man or an old woman looking back on their life, wishing that they had done something when they were younger and had the chance to do it, but failed to do that. And I know there are many of you watching right now that feel that way. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you on a good note for this weekend, and I want to leave you with a note that is encouraging and uplifting, because I think that we proceed with boldness rather than fear. What I'm going to tell you all is just get your house in order, get your cards on the table, get yourself physically, mentally, spiritually fit, and go on out there and get better. I've just posted our 2020 schedule for next year, and we also have some classes left for this year as well in November and December. Well, this message was encouraging, knowing that you're not alone out there. And if you're watching this and you want to take away other people's rights, understand this. You start to do that, you keep getting in people's faces and keep pushing them towards an outcome, you're going to get hit right in the nose. you're going to get hit hard because American people have been long suffering and long patience with your ilk, and I don't care how loud you scream and rant. Understand, guys, that it's time to be nice until it's time not to be nice anymore, and I hope that you take that for what it's worth. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Reid Henrichs with Valor Ridge reminding you, the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.